What is up, down, and sideways, you beautiful individuals? It is another episode of League Online. Garrett and Mark here with you guys for a nice, tasty banger of a Week 1 matchup. And we've already been blessed enough to see Guma play his former team in T1, thanks to the Kespa Cup. But this one actually matters, even though it's not even regular season, LCK Cup, round robin, whatever you want to call it. But are we ever going to complain when T1 and Hanwha match up? No.
No, and especially not when they give us the full distance. We get 3 games out of these two at the top of the LCK. Yes, very happy to see this matchup come through, and very much so a welcomed, a starting gate for the weekend of the very first, real weekend of 2026, getting our League of Legends action in. Happy to have a banger matchup between T1 and Hanwha Life lead us in.
And the most bangerific game of the set was definitely game 1, because it actually had some back and forth. There weren't any huge gold swings. We finally get this nasty little out of vision engage from Kanavi, where he gets a flank on the Vi, and Hanwha gets into this game in control. They have one team fight where T1 kind of gets back into it, and Faker's Rise was trying to do some heavy lifting in this game, and you saw case in point how much sturdier turrets are in 2026 for T1 in this game.
Yeah, very, very much so. And I think one of the things that I think a lot of people have certainly noticed in the very early days of the LCK, and even throwing a little bit of LPL action into there, I think Rise is back on the menu big time for a lot of these mid laners, the way the meta seems, and especially with Faker, a little bit of machine gun Rise type of action again, starting to see some of that, but unfortunately, it isn't going to go their way because, again, it is the Hanwha Life Elder Dragon fight that is going to be the sealer in Game 1.
And, some of the engages that got Hanwha the lead here, it felt like T1 was on the back foot, not really all together on the same page, and this Elder Dragon fight was very much Hanwha Life being on that same page. They try this Realm Warp flank out of T1, and then red carpet immediately gets dropped from Zeus, and you just see them kind of spread and run away as soon as that equalizer drops.
Yeah, and it's a big problem. The other big problem there is Corki is very well fed, very well economized at that point, and Guma able to utilize the damage as well on top of it to capitalize on such a scramble situation at that point after for T1. Very much so. Happy that, Hanwha Life is able to show that type of tenacity at that point from having what advantages they did have start to slip away in this Game 1, able to corral it back and capture it.
Then we're blessed with T1 goes to the back room after Game 1, and I think, they either press the magical switch in their green room or Coma slaps them all upside the face, because it was a very different T1 coming out in Game 2, right from this big skirmish around level 4 where somehow Faker Silas ended up getting a double kill. Him and Owner just completely snowballed this game out of control.
Which I'll give some credit over to Hanwha Life. I think maybe I'll give it a 5 out of 10 times that fight actually goes your way and you come away with early advantages. It was that close for Kanavi, but absolutely one of these ones where he's pretty high up on the list of guys you wouldn't want to give over a double kill early into the game to the unkillable Demon King in Faker, and especially if he's piloting Silas. Even a Silas that is going to miss about 7 or 8 out of 10 chains in this game, yeah, which is wild. I've never seen Faker actually miss that many skill shot type of things like that in the follow-ups, but it didn't matter in any of these situations because not only did Faker himself usually have more than enough follow-up to still secure the kill, Owner and Hayes certainly had more than enough as well to pick up some kills in this game too, to really accelerate and snowball things for T1.
Yeah, and Faker was probably the highlight in that game, but the way that T1 played around Pays on the Aphelios, he was never really in much of a position where he's going to be caught out or ganked, which they learned from Game 1. From doing an early Baron to at 22 minutes when he has the exact right guns and the red-white guns, they were completely playing around that while Faker was just kind of causing chaos around the Rift.
It's one of those things that is absolutely a good early sign for this T1 team, and especially on how Pays is going to gel with this team. Because again, you can run this composition, you can have the early advantages and start snowballing it the way that T1 does. It takes just one mistake, one bad team fight where you aren't able to protect, aren't able to engage right with that Felios, and all of a sudden your advantage isn't there anymore. It is an equal playing field. It is one of these ones where your opponent can make one of these type of moves. So absolutely going to give credit to Pays in the way that he was able to pilot and drive this one home, really, for T1 to secure a dominant Game 2 win to push us to that Game 3.
And you could see how dominant it was at the end when all of Han was flashing in on some low health guys to get the kill, and Kira ends up killing Gumayushi with the Bard, and everybody's laughing, having a good old time as we head into that third game. But I don't know if Hanwha was laughing after Game 3, because Game 2 was a stomp. Then I'm not really sure what to call Game 3 other than a Doran Akali highlight reel. That's right, Doran Akali, not Faker. Doran popping off on the top side.
We get a timely reminder that yes, Zeus might be one of the best top laners in the LCK. That matchup doesn't always equal out when you throw on the other side the neutralizer, the father Doran on the other side, and especially when he's able to bust out an Akali performance like this. Crazy stuff. This actually was a very fun Game 3 from a T1 fan perspective. Of course, getting the win, but really seeing Doran pop off like that, seeing Pays again have another strong game. Very much so happy with this Game 3 from T1.
Yeah, and it felt like Doran was thrown a bone after kind of getting to be AFK in a Cassante Gnar matchup in Game 2 and not have much impact, to doing more than double the damage of anybody on Hanwha Life in this third game. And yeah, there were multiple other standout performances. Owner, this first series, has completely continued where he left 2025 off, and that is the best jungler in the LCK. And like these last two games, the switch that was flipped, 54 to 15 total kills in favor of T1 and 20 turrets to 1. Hanwha Life got a single turret over games 2 and 3.
I think the other kind of crazy thing about this is it was said by Owner, we didn't use the coach's comm throughout the day. That was absolutely not something they were using. So that wasn't part of any of the turnaround things like that. It was all off stage, all between.
He said he'd be confused if he heard his coach's voice on the comms going, "Oh, are you allowed to be here?"
Which we have that perspective, but we've also seen BDD come out and say that he thought it was very helpful for them and things like that. So again, keeping track of the coach's comm little thing that's going on in between all of these things. I think, as well as you mentioned, Owner, a truly dominant, really pop-off level of performance in these Game 2 and Game 3, and especially a rough welcome, I'll call it, for Kanavi, given what Owner was putting out there on the Rift.
And of course, got to give a highlight to the actual player of the match. It's your boy Faker, who this is not early season form for Faker. Usually we're going through the same kind of thing of, maybe, he's warming up, struggling a little. He's still not at that same level. Nah, he gapped Sekka in this series, even though he got solo killed a couple times.
Yeah, and I think that's certainly one of the things that we're going to have to monitor, and that's because, again, we have started to learn to temper our expectations with Faker at this point and, where we are in his career and things like that, but knowing that at the same time, the execution, the game-breaking clutch plays he's made his whole career off of are still possible. I think with the changes in the mid lane, the quest item and how things are and how often you can be out there and how often you can influence the map and where you want to be, that really is the secret sauce, I think, for me, that I'm going to have to keep track of with Faker and how he is able to expand his role due to the changes in the mid lane and the item quests and what things are. I think that it has enabled him to be even more, which, again, if you're enabling someone to be more, there's probably nobody better than the unkillable Demon King to enable more for T1.
And as is tradition, 1 weekend sweeping overreactions, I'm not even going to entertain people saying Hanwha isn't even a good team, blah, 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 unless Kanavi pops off, they're a scrub team. Not even going to entertain it, but I will entertain D Plus being the best team on the planet after a 2-0 dominant win over the DN Supers.
we could have this type of discussion for sure, because there absolutely are going to be a group of people that want to get way ahead of themselves, that are eating in to the hopium copium. Let me tell you from an experienced LCS hopium guy. You can't get too much into it with what we have seen so far, especially knowing that there are the titans that lurk below the surface, that you still have the Gen Gs, T1s, the Hanwha Lifes awaiting for you if you are this D plus Kia to prove that you are in that elite category, that ultra tier of the LCK. Now, you've seen all the good signs that you want, and it continues in today's victory over the DN Supers. You had Siwoo playing fantastic. You have Lucid continuing to evolve himself in the jungle for this squad. Showmaker's having a great time, and Smash is exactly who you thought you were getting in that bottom lane, and is that upgrade at the ADC position. All fantastic things, but until you take care of business against, for me at least at this point, 2 out of 3 of those titans that we listed, the Gen G, T1s, Hanwha Lifes, I'm not buying into you being at that elite category of the LCK just yet.
And that's because we've been burned many times before by D plus Kia. You know, they go undefeated in the LCK Cup. They go on this win streak where they look dominant, and then there is a steep fall off. Things feel a little different this year with the team, with the rookies in the bot lane. But yes, we will be conservative with them until they beat some of these top tier guys, just like we will be conservative with overreacting about Hanwha Life after a single series loss to T1. Over the weekend, LEC starting off as well, Mark. Listen to some of these. Now, it's best of one, so we're pumping the brakes. We're not that excited. But some of these matchups, Los Ratones versus Fnatic to kick things off. We've got a Carmine Corp civil war between KC Blue and the main squad, and the day wraps up with G2 versus Movistar Koi.
I think absolutely there's ways you could maybe massage it a little bit to bring up some of that heat level as a whole, I think, on the LEC. But as far as the storylines go, I think they did nail it for this first week in the matches that we are going to have. Of course, you mentioned a Carmine Civil War type of action is going to be a fun one. Little splash in there. Of course, Los Ratones versus Fnatic. As you said, Reckless versus Fnatic. Baus. This is all going to be some fun stuff. But again, then to put the cherry on top of it all is that G2 versus Movistar Koi matchup, which I think will be our early table setter, really, for this LEC, for this first split, to see who is our initial front runner at the top of the table.
And you want to talk overreactions. Nothing better for that than best of ones in the LEC. 3 whole games the teams will have played, and we'll give those sweeping overreactions when Monday rolls around. But that is it today for Liga Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you. Absolute stunners. Thanks for hanging out as always. We'll catch you on that flippity flip.